Okay, hi everyone. Today I just want to announce about the summer program about Egypt study abroad program. So I don't know if anyone in cybersecurity and business major want to explore the 2 weeks in Egypt program. There's 2 days of cruises, and then we will go to like pyramid. I remember there's gonna be like factory, like you can see like how they transfer like all this the tiny seed into glucose and energy instead of like using like fuel and stuff. And the price, because we all in business major, so I would assume that. So we will have Turner College grants, and then you can also go to the global engagement to ask more about scholarship. So most of the price over here we will cover with the scholarship. So if anyone interested, I can pass out, and then you can sign up for it.
You want to leave it on the table and somebody can get it afterwards. So how many weeks is it?
There's 2 weeks,
And it's this coming summer,
summer 26.
summer 26. So let's see, that beginning of this, what are the dates?
The 14, May 14. So you will come back here in the US before the summer semester start.
Okay,
So there's no interfere.
May 14th through May 30th. So it's really a spring trip. Okay, and you get 3 credit hours, and they go toward business, the credit
Business
hours,
and cybersecurity.
and cybersecurity. Okay, and this is sponsored by um, the business school.
It's not business school, it's global engagement, but
Okay,
so technically my boss is the supervisor. So we
which is who?
Fatty Mansell.
Okay. All right, and then I see Dr. Hot Hot on here.
Yes.
She's Egyptian, I think. Isn't that
Yeah,
right?
both of them are Egyptian.
All right. So you'll be not only you'll be getting the study abroad experience, but you'll be getting personal tours of Egypt from
Yes.
folks who are.
But basically, all the thing that you're gonna do in this, you're gonna visit two university, but you're not really study at all. It's basically like a trip for you.
And is it what do you have to do at the end? Is it a paper or a test?
There's gonna be a quiz
A
in
quiz.
Cougarville.
Okay. All right. Any questions for Ms. Dove? All right. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. And we've got. Yep. And we have the flyers up here if you're interested. Has anybody in here done a study abroad program? Highly recommend if you haven't done those. I think they're a chance to uh, experience some new things, and it's the type of like traveling like that is the type of thing that you can't. It's harder to do when you're when you graduate college and then you start a family and you have a job. You're not just going to take 2 or 3 weeks off here to go visit another country, and so I encourage all y'all to do that while you can, if you can. Do as much travel and exposure to other stuff as possible. All right. So here's where we're going today. I'm going to finish up the lecture on contracts, which isn't going to take me very long. And then we're going to discuss our two cases, which are the Lucy versus Zemer case and the Wright versus Newman case. Hopefully everybody's had a chance to read those by now. This is the last class we will have for this week. So you will not have class Thursday. You will not have any new content after today. I will post a quiz. I might not get to it today. If I don't get to it today, it'll definitely be up tomorrow. And so you'll have between tomorrow and Monday night to do your quiz over the contract law unit. Any questions over what we're looking at? All right, good deal. Anybody having any issues with, before I get into the lecture, with your career prep stuff? I have heard a couple of comments that the link and handshake is confusing or not easy to use. Does anybody have any trouble with that? Has anybody not made an appointment yet for your interview? All right, a few of you need to go ahead and make sure you do that because you really only have between now and Thanksgiving. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I just want to know if this counts. Okay, I did when I was like going on like handshake.
Okay.
To make up my appointment. It was the interview practice / preparation. That's the link, right?
Yes.
When I went to my appointment, I printed off like the packet or wherever was in the link
Yep.
and all that, we did have like a preparation, but it's like we didn't like have like a mock interview.
You didn't actually do the mock interview?
No, she was just like giving me like resources,
Okay.
how to prepare me for it.
All right. Yeah, I want you to do the mock interview. So that I think that may be where some people are getting confused, because when you go on Handshake, is there a choice that's mock interview?
I didn't see that, so I was confused.
That's what I'm hearing, I think. So you need to make sure, those of you that are here and present on campus, I think it's the best thing you can do is to walk out of here and walk over there in person and tell them what you need.
You can also add a comment when you do request the interview.
Okay.
Say, what is it that you need?
Okay. So when you register for whatever you choose, there's a comment. I'm repeating this so everybody can hear. There's a comment option, and you can say, I need a mock interview. So please make sure that you do that. And again, you only have 3 weeks, and they may have limited availability. So please get on that. I also want to hear your feedback, and it doesn't have to be before the end of the semester, but it could be if you want to. I want to know if this is worthwhile, and I want to know if there are things we need to change about it. Like, hey, this part was a waste of time. This part could have been better. Please let me know, because I want to improve it as we go each semester. This is probably the best it's been, but I still want it to be very useful for you. Mr. Lucas, do you have a question? You just walked in for your mock interview?
No, you can just walk in.
To get an appointment?
Yeah.
Okay.
While work this, we can walk
in. Okay. You work there?
Yeah.
Why didn't you tell us that?
I told you that last week.
You told me that last week, and I've already forgotten. That sounds right. You did tell me that. That's right. So anybody's welcome to walk in to make your appointment. Okay. Thank you for speaking up, and I'm sorry I forgot that you told me that. Okay. We are going to talk about 2 things real quickly in your outline. The first is the issue of mistake. What happens if one or both parties makes a mistake as to a material term of the contract? Depends on who makes the mistake. So if one party is mistaken, they generally cannot get out of the contract. If both parties are mistaken, then they can. Then one party could rescind the contract. Here's an example of that. I see an ad on Facebook Marketplace for a motorcycle, and Ramon owns the motorcycle. I go to his house and look at it. I inspect it. He gives me the vehicle identification number, the operator's manual, the bill of sale. I can see where he bought it from. It's a 2008 model. That's clear, and all the stuff he gives me. I think it's a 2010. Okay, I pay more because I think it's a 2010. Turns out it's a 2008. That was my mistake. I cannot get out of the contract because of a mistake that I made. That's not the same thing as fraud. Remember, if he leads me, if he deceives me, or if he lies to me, that's not a mistake. That's fraud. I can get out of it on fraud. But mistake by one party, if it's their own mistake and it's not caused by the other party and the other party has clean hands, then the mistaken party is not going to be able to get out of that contract. But let's say, for example, that Damien owns a piece of property and I want to buy it, and we both think that it's zone commercial. Neither one of us bothers to check to see that it's zone residential, but we enter into a purchase and sale agreement based on our mutual assumption that it's zone commercial. Either one of us could get out of that contract because we were both mistaken as to the same term. That's the effect of mistake. All right, that takes us to the writing requirement. So this comes full circle from what I told you. One of the first things I told you last Tuesday was that not all contracts have to be in writing, but some do. What I will test you on, or what you'll see on a quiz, is I want you to know that principle. Not all contracts have to be in writing, but some do. I'm not going to get into the weeds with you on which ones do and which ones don't. Okay. It's the important thing is that you remember that some have to be and some don't. I'm going to tell you which ones do have to be in writing. Okay. But what I want you to take away from this is that not all contracts have to be in writing, but some do. So which ones do have to be in writing? Anything that involves an interest in land. So a lease, a purchase and sale agreement for a home, the sale of the Ferguson farm, things like that have to be in writing. Contracts that cannot be performed within 1 year have to be in writing. That can, I'm pretty sure there's not a quiz question on any of this, and I'll go back and check and make sure. But this could be tricky in that, let's say that CSU hires me to teach business law for 2 years. I sign a 2-year contract. Or I take that back. I didn't sign anything. I agreed with the dean on a 2-year contract to teach. We didn't put it in writing. Is it possible that I could perform that contract in less than a year? No, because it's for 2 years, right? So therefore, it would have to be in writing to be enforceable. What if the dean and I agree that I will teach business law for life? Could that be performed in less than a year? Who said no? It could. Because why, Luis? That's right. I could die before a year's up. I'm not testing y'all on this level of trickiness, but I just want to point out to you that this is another reason why you just should put everything in writing. I don't want you to be in business and think to yourself, what was that rule about performance within 1 year? I wonder if I need to put this in writing. Then I want the alarms to go off in your head, and you will hear me saying, don't worry about whether or not it has to be in writing. Put it in writing, right? We are asking for trouble if our mental analysis is, I wonder if this has to be in writing, then we're asking for trouble. Don't ever wonder that. Collateral contracts have to be in writing. So like when you pledge an asset as collateral, like on a loan, that has to be in writing. If you make a promise to pay somebody else's debt, like co-signing on a loan, y'all probably heard of that. Nick wants to buy a car, but he doesn't have credit, so he needs his dad to co-sign for him. That's the kind of thing that has to be in writing. The UCC, remember we talked about that last week, the Uniform Commercial Code, that requires contracts for the sale of goods to be in writing. Promises made in consideration of marriage have to be in writing, although I've never seen that come up anywhere. Okay. I think that's all that I wanted to say as far as the outline goes. So any questions so far about anything that we've talked about outline-wise? All right, so let's then move to our first case, which is Lucy versus Zemer. So we're going to do this similar to how we've done some of the other cases. Mr. Lou, Mr. Gaduru, from y'all over these 2 rows, y'all are going to be the attorneys for Mr. Lucy. All right? You 2 rows over here, this side of the room is going to be the attorneys for Mr. Zemer. All right. Tell me briefly, Nick, set this up for me. What's the dispute going on here?
The 2 tried to basically make like a drunken contract.
A drunken contract. And he's characterized it already as a drunken contract. Wait, like, who are you? You're Lucy's lawyer now.
So, no, a sober contract.
A sober, okay. All right. A contract, an enforceable contract.
Yeah.
All right. In a restaurant. Keep going.
For $50,000.
Okay.
And,
What's the subject of the contract? Right. Ferguson Farm.
Mhm.
All right. So who owns the Ferguson Farm?
The
Mr. Zimmer, right. Their client. Your client is Mr. Lucy, who wants to buy the Ferguson Farm. All right. What time of year is it? Fifth. Well, okay. What time of the year what season is it? It was like, it's Christmas time, wasn't it? I think. Is that right? Okay. November. Okay. I'm wrong then. There was a Christmas party that that must be what I'm thinking of. All right. Here's how we're going to do this. So let's start with Lucy. And let's talk about all of the facts that are good for your client. You lawyers on this side of the room. Obviously, the dispute is whether or not there's an enforceable contract for the sale of the farm. That's what the dispute is over. Lucy, you guys on this side of the room say you've got a valid contract and Zimmer has to go through with it. Your guys' argument is there is no valid contract. It wasn't serious, and we'll talk about all the reasons why that may be true. This dispute is viewed through the lens of the objective theory of contracts, right? So we talked about how whenever parties get into a disagreement or a dispute about their contract and they go to court, the court is going to evaluate the facts through an objective lens. They're not going to be thinking about what was in somebody's head or what they might have meant. Courts can only go by the evidence that's objectively presented. What was said, what was heard, what was seen, what was written, what the circumstances were, things like that. Not what somebody meant or might have been thinking in their head. All right, so somebody, you lawyers on this side, give me a good fact for Mr. Lucy, for your client.
Mr. Zimmer wrote down that he would sell land.
Okay, Mr. Zimmer wrote it down. So it wasn't even your client that wrote the agreement. Okay, that's a good fact for you. I agree. Damien.
It looks like also both him and his wife signed the agreement as well.
All right, they both signed it. And oh, by the way, what happened during the course of the evening that ended up with them both having to sign it?
He scratched out I and changed it to we.
He even changed the contract that he wrote because he first wrote I, then then you guys pointed out to him that it needed to be we. So he did what? What did he do after that?
He gave it to his wife.
Well, yeah, he scratched it out, changed it, and then he gave it to his wife to sign. All right, so it wasn't like he was doing something his wife didn't know about. All good facts. What else? Were these two men strangers?
They were friends.
They were friends, known each other a while, right? Had they ever talked about the Ferguson farm before? Multiple times. This wasn't like a just out of the blue. All right, what else?
Lucy made a previous offer of $20,000 for the farm.
Okay, and that was how many years ago, approximately?
I don't remember specifically, but it was like a few years
Something like 8 or 10 years ago.
But it was only a verbal agreement.
So he was able to get out of that one, right? Because now we know that because this had to do with sale of land, it had to be in writing, right? All right, so this wasn't even the first time they'd negotiated this. How long did it take them to, what about the negotiations is a good fact for y'all? About how long it took?
It took about 30, 40 minutes.
30 to 40 minutes, okay? It's not like a just sort of out of the blue, hey, sell it to me, sign this, gotcha. They discussed it. They negotiated it. What did the writing itself say? Damien, read me the wording of the contract.
It says, we hereby agree to sell W.O. Lucy the Ferguson farm complete for $50,000 title satisfactory to buyer.
All right.
And signed by the defendants.
All right. So in our analysis of whether or not that was a valid offer and acceptance, have we identified the parties? Does that identify the parties?
Yes, it identifies W.O. Lucy as the buyer, and A.H. Zemer and Ida S. Zemer as the.
Okay, we've identified the parties. We've identified the subject matter, the farm, right? Part of the farm, all of the farm. What did it say? Complete, right? Okay. Do we have the consideration in there? $50,000, right? What about the fact that they added in title satisfactory to buyer? Is that a good fact for you or not? How would you make it a good, what was the argument that that's a good fact for you?
Well, I mean, that gives us the right to accept it or deny it.
It makes it seem more serious, right? There's some contingencies on there. It's pretty standard in a real estate contract that the buyer would want to examine title and make sure the title was clean. So that makes it look more like a legitimate contract and less like a drunken joke. That's the argument we would make on that. What else? What about the price? $50,000 in cash. Is that a good fact for you or not? $50,000 for the farm? I mean, the courts don't get involved in whether it's a good deal or not, but based on what you know, is that a good deal?
Considering they only paid $11,000.
Yeah, all right, he paid $11,000 for it, so it's appreciated. He turned down 20 however many years ago, so this is more than double that offer. It would be cash, also good. What else? Let me see what else we got for y'all. Don't leave any arguments out there.
He attempted to offer for $5 to bind the bargain, but they declined it.
Saying what?
You don't need to give me any money. You got the agreement there signed by both of us.
Not necessary. Right. Let me see if I've got anything down here that we haven't talked about. Interestingly, did
Oh, there was another thing.
go ahead.
So he said, I bet you wouldn't take $50,000 for that place. He said, yes, I would too. You wouldn't give 50.
Are either of those an offer or an acceptance?
I would read it that way because I said, I bet you wouldn't take 50, and he said, yes, I would.
But could you, let me ask you a different way. Could Lucy have tried to enforce the contract just based on that?
Probably not.
Probably not, right? We don't have the offer and acceptance that we need on that. They're just talking about terms, talking about preliminary negotiations or
But this would be
statements
more
of
to
future intent.
This would be more to the fact that Lucy would not think that this was unjust like they are.
Agree. I agree with you. So I was asking two different things, but yes, I agree. That's a good fact for you. The other guy was kind of calling his bluff, saying, "Put up or shut up." Yeah, of course I would. But you don't have it. And Lucy said, "I do," and he said, "Put it in writing." Right? Okay. All good facts for your client. Notice that to tie in some other stuff, before they went to court, depositions were taken. So the lawyers were asking the witnesses under oath prior to trial, what did you see? What did you hear? How were they acting? That kind of thing. And a lot of the evidence that the court cites in their opinion is taken from that deposition testimony. All right, Mr. Zemer's lawyers. You've now heard all Mr. Lucy's arguments. What are your arguments? What are the facts that support your argument that it is not a valid contract? Yes, Ms. Harvey.
They were both intoxicated.
They were intoxicated. How much? How would you know? It was clear they were drinking, right? Okay. They were drinking. How long had your client been drinking? He says, I think all afternoon, right? We don't necessarily know for sure if he'd been drinking all afternoon, but we do know what happened once Mr. Lucy got there, which is what?
He started offering drinks.
He offered your guy drinks, right? What does that look like to you, Tim?
Looks like he was trying to get him drunk. So he didn't take the deal.
Yeah. Is that something that you would normally see in a above the board regular arm's length business deal, that one party is pouring shots before they get them to do something?
No, it just seemed like he's trying to get him intoxicated so he'd take the deal and write a hasty contract.
All right, you guys be preparing your responses to all this. All right, what else is good for your client? Thought it was a joke. All right, and what would be your evidence that it was a joke, Emily? You're not wrong. But what are some facts that support that? There was banter. It's on the back of a receipt. Who writes a serious contract on the back of a receipt? What time of day was it?
It was past 8:30 at night
Past 8:30 at night. Where were they?
in a restaurant or bar.
In a restaurant or the bar. Does Mr. Zemer operate that bar as a real estate sales office? In his normal course of duty, is that something he would expect as somebody to come in and negotiate real estate deals with him? That'd be my argument, right? I'm not saying either side is right. I'm going to let y'all vote in a minute. But we're putting the best spin we can on all the arguments for Mr. Zemer.
It also looks like he misspelled Ferguson.
Oh, he misspelled Ferguson. And what does that make it? What is that? How would you argue that, Tim?
I would argue that he couldn't even spell the name of his own property,
So he must have been.
he was too drunk to.
He was too drunk to spell the name of his own property. Well, he could have made that argument, right? That the Ferguson farm with an I is a different piece of. That would have been a tough one, but yes. What else did he say about his handwriting?
He didn't recognize it.
Okay, he didn't recognize it. Now, interestingly enough, your guy's argument before the court was never that the contract wasn't valid. It was that he was joking. It wasn't serious, right? So he's never really attacked any of the elements such as offer, acceptance, consideration, that kind of thing. He's just attacking the idea that it was a joke. What facts would support, objective facts would support Zemer's idea that it was a joke? Emily hit on it a little bit. We're at a bar. I mean, we're drinking, we're bantering. We were really giving each other a hard time about whether or not you had $50,000 cash. This is the kind of talk that goes on at a restaurant where people are drinking past 8 or whatever it is. That's just two guys shooting the shit. That would be my argument, for lack of a better term. What else? Any other good arguments for your guy?
The wife said right here that it's nothing but a joke as she signed it.
Right. Did Lucy hear that? We don't know. The way it's written, it sounds like he may not have heard that. But that supports your client's contention that the whole atmosphere, the whole thing was a joke, was not a serious conversation. Okay? The court, in looking at this through the objective theory of contracts, comes out on whose side? Who won this case based on this opinion? Did he have to sell the farm or not? He did. He did have to sell the farm. So Lucy's guys, Mr. Lucy is the one that won. All right, Mr. Lucy, lawyers, based on some of the arguments that you heard from Mr. Zemer's lawyers, what responses do you have? Damien.
So first they mentioned that they had both been intoxicated. Mind you, at the beginning of this whole case, it looks like at that point in time, Lucy had been the only one who was drinking when negotiations had started, because Zemer had walked in, and it doesn't state whether he had any drinks prior to walking into the restaurant or not. So they started negotiations before he could be as inebriated as Lucy had been.
All right. What if I'm the judge and I'll say, Mr. Olinger, what is your client's argument? What's your response to the fact that your client provided liquor to Mr. Zemer?
That's a friendly gesture. I mean,
He's doing good. He's arguing for his guy now. That's right. Keep going.
He didn't have to accept it, and he accepted it. So in a way, that could be also considered consideration. I mean,
So, Mr. Zemer's lawyers, I'm the judge, and I'm asking you, what responsibility does your client have in this situation? He didn't have to take the drink.
Well, no reasonable person would make a deal or write a contract under the influence.
All right, no reasonable person would do it under the influence. What do you guys say to that?
why would you start negotiations with somebody who's under the influence but you're not?
Why did you spend 40 minutes arguing about it?
Yeah, you accepted the drink, so that means you must be entertaining my offer.
Mr. Lucy's lawyers, what do you say about the circumstances here? We're in a restaurant drinking past 8 o'clock. Is that really the atmosphere that we would expect a serious $50,000 real estate deal to go down?
Hey, I mean, I believe in the ABCs always be closing, so.
We're asking the salesman over here. All right. What do you guys say to that? Nobody? Come on. Come on, Levi. Fight for Mr. Zemer. Well, actually, Mr. Zemer won at the trial court level because it got dismissed. And then he appealed, and Mr. Lucy won on appeal. So they've both won at certain levels, although Mr. Lucy had the last laugh. Any other arguments that y'all have to make? All right, so let's poll the jury then. You are no longer bound to one side or the other. Now the question is, if you're on the jury, who would you rule for, and what's the key piece of evidence that makes your mind up? What's the most important reason that you're ruling for one or the other? We're going to go back and forth. So let's start with Mr. Gwynn. Who wins, Mr. Lucy or Mr. Zemer, and why? Hold on. I'm going to let you pass this. Let y'all pass that. All right, say that again.
I would say Mr. Lucy because
Mr. Zemer, because.
Lucy.
Lucy, because.
Because while drinking, he was still able to engage in a detailed negotiation.
Okay. You're persuaded by the detail of the negotiation, and that even though he was drinking, there were still some pretty detailed facts that were negotiated over. Okay.
And he knows that Lucy was being serious about the contracts.
Okay.
They had talked about it multiple times before.
Yeah, they talked about it before. This wasn't out of the blue. Okay. Yeah. All right, good. Faith, juror Faith, what do you say?
I would also say Lucy because of the objective theory of contracts.
Okay.
And because, like he kind of said, the drinking didn't prohibit them understanding anything. Like
okay.
They both were able to recall everything that happened. So it was kind of clear that it was an actual contract.
All right. Pass that up to Nick. Mr. Stoyar, what say you?
In all honesty, I'm pretty conflicted. I don't really know who to choose.
All right, I like that. Tell me what is the conflict?
Well, I mean, there was a long conversation about the contract. I mean, it's been talked about multiple times before. But then on the other hand, the time and place and the setting of where the deal went down kind of makes it to where it's just like, I get how I get both sides, but I see how Lucy won. It's hard for me to kind of make a opinion on who I think should have won, but I get both sides.
All right, I think that's an excellent answer. I'm conflicted too.
Yeah.
Obviously, reasonable minds could disagree about this. We had
Mhm.
one court dismiss the case and one court then overturn that. So this is not a clear-cut case.
Yeah.
All right, Damien, what do you say?
So I think that Lucy was the clear-cut winner in this situation because one, the negotiations started before they started drinking, before the sellers started drinking in this situation. If they were not serious about it, they also would have outright denied the whole thing, like denied writing it down and all that stuff, said no, just like they had in the past. Second, if the shoe was on the other foot, and let's say Lucy was the one that was trying to say, hey, I was drunk during this, and I'm not giving them $50,000. I wasn't serious about buying it. I think they would still have the same right if he initiated negotiations to try and collect on that 50,000 because he also signed the contract that he started negotiations on.
Okay. Well, that is well reasoned. James, what do you say?
I think Lucy's pretty much in the clear here, but I think it's a good case to argue for Zimmer because I mean, sure they started not under like being like fully sober, but I mean that I really am questioning like towards that when they started getting really going in the drinking part, where it's like a little bit unfair to Zimmer, but I think Lucy's just about like on edge, good enough to get by with it.
Good answer. Prue, who are you ruling for?
I would say, well, Lucy's is pretty understandable in the sense that it was in writing, the contract was in writing that Zimmer did make, as well as the fact that it's not like Lucy was underselling the property. It was more than what he was offering more than what the property
So if this
actually
had been a bad
costed.
deal, would you have been more inclined to rule for Zimmer?
Yeah, because it would seem like Lucy was kind of scamming him
Okay.
in that scenario.
Right?
But I can also understand for Zimmer, he was drunk, but at the same time, it is kind of his fault for, getting drunk
wrote
and
it.
trying to make it.
He had 45 minutes to change his mind.
And it's not like Lucy forced him to drink. He said, like, do you want to drink, yes or no?
That's true. And Zimmer's an adult.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. There's no power imbalance.
Yeah, there's
No
not really a
duress.
power imbalance.
All right. Pass it back. What do you say, Mr. Lou?
I will say I standing on Lucy because everybody's saying they're doing the contract before they start drinking and they're still sober. Even now they after drunk and Zimmer don't agree, blah blah blah, this kind of stuff. But also we had to remember they're a guru man. They had to pay off whatever they write it down. They had to do it whatever they do it before they get drunk. It's not like they're doing the stuff in the drunk. Maybe we are drunk, we couldn't agree this one, but they do it when they are sober.
If he really wanted the farm, why didn't he come to him at a different time?
Yeah,
why
and
didn't
also-
he have his real estate agent or his lawyer call and do all this? Those are good points.
Also, like during that time, 50,000, like in 1954, that's
Yeah,
a big money.
That's
like,
big money.
what's the point not taking the deal? Plus, you are make the deal before you go into the
Do you
drink.
think if Lucy had put $50,000 down on the bar, that Zimmer would have taken it right there?
He will. Plus, it's 50,000 in the cash.
I think he probably would have too.
Yeah,
It
that's
would
why.
have
Like,
had a
that's my
different
opinion.
outcome. All right, what you say, Mr. Lucas?
I didn't really read the article, but based on what everybody said, I'll go with Miss Lucy.
Fair enough. Pass it on over because I want to make sure we get to the other case. Justice. Go ahead.
I was late to the party.
All right. If you hadn't read or you don't know, then you can pass it on. It's okay.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
I think Lucy won the case. Although it's kind of messed up, he gave him drinks. He didn't have to accept it. And like they say, drink responsibly, especially when you're doing a
It was apparently
business
some
deal.
good liquor too, right? Isn't that what the case said?
Yeah. So like, if you don't want to make a bad deal, drink responsibly.
Don't chance it. Don't
Yeah.
even talk about selling something as important as your farm.
Especially something that big. And if you have nowhere to go, I mean, hey, that's your fault. That's all I can say.
Okay, I like that. Of course, the response to that is Ramone's got the hand you thing. The response to that is, Lucy should have known this wasn't serious. I mean, who's going to negotiate something that important and that big in this fashion? Go ahead.
I got Zimmer.
Okay.
Just because alcohol affects your disordination and it causes confusion. So
Okay.
that's about it.
All right. Tim?
I want to say Zemer was in the right for this one just because I feel like it was a shady deal already. Lucy, just the setting they were in, the environment, how they were drinking, it just wasn't right that they were.
It's definitely somewhat shady.
Yeah, it's just shady because, I mean, he had talked about making him a deal previously.
Yeah.
And he had said no, and then he shows up at the bar past 8:30 offering him
it's
drinks.
not like they had real estate agents doing this
Right,
negotiation.
exactly. It wasn't like they were sitting at some office in the middle of the day.
Or it's not like the farm had been listed on the market and there's a for sale,
So,
Yeah.
I mean, Lucy won, but I feel like the Zemers were kind of screwed out on that one.
Okay. Awesome. Oh, there you go. Who you got?
I do see stuff on both sides, but it makes sense why Lucy kind of won. But at the same time, it's like you do see Zimmer's side. Like when he was offered the $5, he was like, that's when he kind of realized he's like, oh, he's kind of serious. Okay. So you can kind of see there's a clear point. Like he thought it was a joke.
At some point.
Yeah.
They may have started joking, but at some point it got serious. Yeah. Things got real. All right. Miss Loretti, who are you going to rule for?
I think Zimmer is in the right because, like, I just don't see signing a contract in a restaurant like valid.
All right. That's dope.
Just simple.
I don't mean to rush y'all. I just want to make sure I get to the other case.
I would say Lucy wins.
Lucy wins. All right.
It makes sense. He already set it up, the whole thing, drinking and stuff, talking about it when the other one is drunk.
And we have to have an objective way of resolving these disputes, right? If we went around allowing people to just say I was drunk or that isn't what I meant, that would disrupt a lot of the certainty that we conduct business with. Amber.
I say Lucy because even though, they were drunk or were they aware of the situation and all that, but personally, if I was joking, I wouldn't be writing nothing. I'll be like, or if I did write something, I'll rip it up. That's me personally.
Yeah.
That would be
you
like
wouldn't have given it to him.
Yeah, and signed it or have my wife sign it or something like that.
All right.
It's been a joke.
Juliet.
I agree with what you said a lot. I would have just like torn it up or not even let him have it or played around a little more with
Or how
it if I
about
was
writing on
joking.
it, this is a joke?
Yeah. But I also think alcohol should have played maybe a little bigger role in it because, it's a deciding factor. But also back to what she said over there, they clearly recalled what happened. So it couldn't have been that hammered.
Well, that's true. They were pretty detailed about what happened. I like that thought. All right, Emily, real quick.
I feel bad for Zimmer. And at the same time, like, what was his wife thinking letting him go through with this contract? And also, if they were friends,
it's the woman's fault.
Like, why would they? I don't know. I feel like
it's a
feels
close
like
call.
Lucy. It feels like it was kind of premeditated because he tried multiple times before. He was like, maybe this night I'll get him. We'll have drinks.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I kind of side with Zimmer.
All right, good. I think that what I would like to have seen, which is not possible, I would like to have seen the video of this. Because I think if I could have seen the body language and how this was all going down and facial expressions and tone of language and all that, I think I could watch the video and tell you whether or not they were joking. That's a cop-out answer for me because, of course, we don't have the video, and that's why we have to go on the objective theory. I tend to think part of Lucy should have known that he might not have been totally serious. But he wrote it. But I also fault Zimmer for doing what he did. I can see that too. All right. In the 10 minutes we have left, I'm going to tell you what I want you to know about the Wright versus Newman case because we just don't have time to go through it all in detail. This is a Georgia case. It was decided this century. And the issue is about child support. All right. Well, child support, we have statutes that require parents to pay support to the other parent when they're not married, as you know, to cover the cost of raising the children. In this case, I'm gonna make sure I get there. I tend to mix up the parties. Wright was the stepfather of this child. He was not the child's biological father. There was never any dispute about that. But when the child was born, he put his name on the birth certificate. He and Ms. Newman were together. And for the first 3 years of the child's life, Mr. Wright was involved and part of the child's life, and for all purposes, acted as the child's father. All right. They break up. And because Mr. Wright is not the child's biological father, she can't get child support from him under the child support laws. Those are limited just to biological fathers or ex-spouses. All right, so he has no legal obligation under the child support laws to support the child. She sues him 10 years later. So I'm going to make sure you get the timeline right. Child's born. Mr. Wright is in this child's life for 3 years. Ms. Newman breaks up with Mr. Wright, kicks him out. They have nothing to do with the child for 7 years. They get back together, or Mr. Wright comes back in the child's life 10 years later, and then Ms. Newman sues him for child support. His defense is, I'm not subject to the child support laws because I'm not this child's father. Her argument is under contract law, not under the child support laws. Do we have a contract in this case? Was there ever any promise to pay child support in exchange for any benefits? So how can she sue him under contract theory? She uses the doctrine of promissory estoppel. Remember, we talked about that being sort of not an exception to contract law, but a doctrine that courts would use to enforce a promise even when there isn't a legally enforceable contract. There's not a contract, but you made a promise, and fairness dictates that we're going to enforce it anyway. That's her theory. So we know that under promissory estoppel, and the case lays this out, what the Georgia law of that is, that if a person makes a promise that they should reasonably expect the other person to rely on, and the other person does rely on that promise to their detriment, then the court might enforce the promise even though it's not a valid contract. Okay? So under that theory, the court is saying, did Mr. Wright make a promise, air quotes, promise, through his actions to support the child? She says, yeah, he held himself out as the dad. He did all of the obligations that a dad does. He signed the birth certificate. That was his implicit promise to support the child. She says she relied on that promise because she allowed Mr. Wright to be the dad. She didn't go after the biological dad for child support. She didn't take any other actions to legally bind the biological dad. She allowed Wright to be the dad. Okay? She relied on it, she says, to her detriment. And so therefore, his actions created this implicit promise to support the child. The court says yes. He is, I'm screwing this up. The court says that promissory estoppel does apply and Mr. Wright should have to support this child. Even though there was no consideration, even though there was no formal written contract, even though there was never any express promise, we're still going to enforce it. The dissenting opinion, which is when the justices in the minority write to say why they disagree with the majority, Justice Benham says, hold on a second. Promissory estoppel requires that she prove that she relied on his promise to her detriment. And there is no evidence presented at trial that shows that she was prevented from going after the real father for child support. She didn't show the court any evidence of that. 7 years passed from the time that they broke up to the time that she brought the case. During those 7 years, she could have gone after the biological dad for child support, and for whatever reason, she didn't. She also, by the way, wasn't getting child support from the biological dad during those 7 years. So how's that any different than her not getting child support from Mr. Wright? How's that to her detriment? She ain't getting it either way. And oh, by the way, when they broke up when the child was 3, who did that? She did it, right. So Justice Benham is saying, hold on a second. I just don't see the evidence that she relied on his promise to her detriment. If that had actually been put into evidence and he could see somewhere where she did, then he might have thought differently. But he's saying y'all are just assuming that she relied on his promise to his detriment without any evidence that she did that. Justice Sears comes back at Justice Benham, in her opinion, and says, I agree with the majority. I disagree with Justice Benham, and I'm going to go after his opinion. This is what I'm going to say. She says, whenever a man takes on the responsibility that Mr. Wright did through his actions, he has made a promise that a court could enforce to support that child. Justice Benham, in his dissent, says we have to make a difference between a moral obligation. Should Mr. Wright have supported this child? Morally, you could make that argument. But legally, how are we going to legally force him to do something that he's not contractually bound to do, that he's not bound to do by the child support statutes? He just doesn't see how the evidence would support promissory estoppel. Yes?
What evidence is there against the concept that, like, you know, like, do we know who the father is? Does she know who the father is?
Well, that was part of Justice Benham's argument was it wasn't even in the evidence that she knew or didn't know.
I guess my question would be, what would the evidence look like that would be in support of her case?
Oh.
Satisfied them?
Okay, what would have satisfied Justice Benham? Great question. If they had put her on the witness stand and she had testified, so-and-so is the dad, I knew so-and-so is the dad, but Mr. Wright told me not to ever worry about anything. He was going to be the child's dad. We talked about that. I could have gone after the guy for child support, and Mr. Wright said, no, don't worry about that. Don't do that. I would have wanted to ask her on the stand, do you even know who it is? You know, if you don't know who it is, then you're not missing out on anything because you couldn't have gotten it from him anyway, right? So that partially answers your question. But we're not saying that she didn't rely on it. Justice Benham is just saying, I don't see in the evidence where she relied on it. Yes?
Why did they even split up in the first case? They didn't have anything to do with the child.
Okay. So yeah, that's something else you would want to know. What are some more circumstances surrounding how this all went down?
Was there some type of abuse situation going on? Was the child's life?
Her case would have been stronger if she went after Wright for child support at year 3 after she broke up with him. Saying, well, now we're broken up and I want you to keep doing what you've been doing while we're together. But the 7-year gap for me is problematic. All right, we're out of time. So that's all for today. I will see y'all next Tuesday. And remember what the Ms. Doe's announcement was about study abroad in what country? Egypt. Good. Remember that. If you came in late, come let me know.